If you've ever wondered why, when I break down VA claims into three simple pillars and it clicks for you, it's almost like, huh, how come I had such a hard time grasping this concept? Well, I'm going to show you why, as veterans, we are actually conditioned and we are approaching the VA claims issue from a frame of mind that does not even allow us to properly understand the VA claims process. That's what gets us trapped into this, the path to nowhere in VA claim appeals, fighting against the system. When I show you this simple change in mind, you're going to be able to see the VA claim system for what it actually is and finally win your claim efficiently. The metaphor is this: what if you had someone looking to open a door and they didn't know any better? So instead of using a key, they used a banana. Lo and behold, after a few minutes, they get fed up and now want to spend money on hiring a locksmith to try and fix the door, try and fix the lock, troubleshoot, go through that process. Well, you as someone in the know, right, because this is not an unknown for you, you would say, wow, that's silly. Obviously, if you'd use the right key, you wouldn't have to go to the locksmith. What does that have to do with VA claims? The locksmith in this metaphor is a VA lawyer. Okay. An appeal, right? If you find yourself tempted to go to a VA disability lawyer and file a Board of Veterans Appeals appeal, you better know you're not using a banana instead of a key the entire time. And most of you are. This has to do with a concept that we're familiar with in the military, which is a branched hierarchy. This is what we are programmed with, the knowledge of, right? So you have your commander at the top. Okay, this is the president. These are his generals here below him. Okay, and it kind of filters down in that hierarchical structure. Think of an organizational chart. You can think of it as a bit of a patriarchal frame of looking at things, right? Like these are the father nodes, and they have their offspring right here, right? Very father and offspring sort of commanding, bossing things around below them. Okay, this is going to make sense in a second. This is what we struggle with, the concept of grasping, which is a nested hierarchy. So whereas the branched hierarchy may be way down here, this little node could feel very removed from the president, right? Way up here. It feels very out of touch, out of reach, maybe even off-world. A nested hierarchy, you can look at this kind of like the Russian dolls, right? You have your broadest category, and I'm going to get into specifics and how this relates to VA claims, and it gets more and more specific within, each sub-container, but you can see at a glance that everything's here, right? It's all here. It's just the outermost circles kind of give birth to the circle within it. So it's a very matriarchal design of how we can look at things. All right. Another way to illustrate this is kind of an amphitheater, right? So the outer rings, or you can look at it as planets, right, in the solar system. The further out, right, the outer rings are the very first sort of things that you tackle, right? And the further out, the outside it is, the more ephemeral, right? The more broad. So essentially out here you have what's in essence pure potentiality. And as you get closer to the center, things kind of coagulate and congeal and are ultimately incarcerated into form in the center. It gets more specific. Let's see that in a VA claim context. We know if you're claiming a VA disability, there's a couple things that matter, right? You have severity, how bad is your disability? Is it service connected? And does it even exist? Now, is that the right order though? Does the VA care how severe your back pain is? If your back pain isn't even diagnosed, what are we supposed to rate? There's no diagnosis, right? So the very first outer ring is the most general. Was okay, mister. Okay, sure, you have back pain. Let's see that diagnosis, right? You can't expect any benefit of the doubt, right? As the veteran, you can't expect anything given to you. I might get a couple comments that say, well, actually, it says here in M21-1 that the veteran is supposed to get the benefit of the doubt doctrine. It's one thing to read it. It's another thing to see thousands of claims and see how they turn out and how the VA actually operates, right? So the VA claims 3 pillars of a VA disability. This is what you need for every single VA disability, right? It needs to be diagnosed, because otherwise, what do you have to get a rating on if you don't have any diagnosis? You need to get it service connected. Otherwise, the VA is not going to pay you. And of course, you need to convey to the VA a certain degree of severity. Otherwise, they won't know what to pay you or how much. This is a nested hierarchy. All factors are present, and the outer circle kind of births forth the inner circle. So when you're filing your VA claim, you're looking at it as a nested hierarchy perspective, and you're not even going to try to convey severity unless you have proven first the diagnosis, unless the VA second has conceded service connection. Now we can get to business, and that potentiality has congealed into real cash. Okay. This brings into question an interesting aspect of this VA claim thing, because clearly we have a mass hallucination event going on where we have the frame of mind skewed toward branch hierarchy only, which actually yields us to think about things as they are not, right? So we create these ideas, and even though it's not actually the case, we hallucinate it in mass, and we essentially create it as a reality. Let me give you an example. What you see right now is a division sign, okay, a mathematical symbol. Now, the interesting thing about this is that it's a line and it's 2 points on either side. Now, those of you who have taken geometry, you'll understand that a point is a location in space with no magnitude. No magnitude. So it means it has no thickness, right? A line, similarly, has length, but no thickness. So you've never seen a line. You've never seen a geometric line before. You've never seen a geometric point before. You've seen representations of them. But a line doesn't say it has very small thickness. No, a line has no thickness. So does the symbol of division actually exist, or is it just a concept that we then kind of bring down and then it changes our behavior? Is it an illusion? And why does that matter? Because we also symbolize things in our VA claim based on these hallucinations. Because we are so branch hierarchy, or we can call it a vertical hierarchy, centric, being in the military, what do they say? Ray, route it up your chain of command. How do I escalate this? Oh, make sure you follow your chain of command. I want to rank up. I am not going to speak to these lower ranking people, right? Very up and down, right? That makes way for this. We have a tendency to then, if something seems like an up problem, meaning with our VA claim, it can't be the problem down here. What we're doing everything right. It's got to be the symbol, right? We create the VA as a symbol. Or it's got to be up there that the issue is. And the solution, reflexively, is also up there. And we consider that as lawyers, right? So does the VA lawyer, being a symbol of higher learning, higher thinking, a high serious resort solution, they are a symbol, but do they actually have the magnitude to help with your VA claim in the real world? Well, maybe, but not any more magnitude than what you had right here. If you would have seen this as a nested hierarchy, knowing that you need to tackle your diagnosis, your service connection, right? What's your in-service event? And then your severity. What we do is we mess this up by glossing straight past it. And then all of a sudden we try to look up and cling to things, cling to pantheons, right? Cling to these deities that we symbolize and idolize in our head. When really, we need to be working inward, right? Just like the solar system, right? If you want to head to the light, that bright ball in the center of the solar system, you work inward. You don't grasp upward. Earth is a sphere anyway, right? What's up? Now, here's a prettier depiction of the 3 paths of VA disability. Okay, so step 1, okay, we have a medical diagnosis, right? That's what we need. The VA rater needs to know that you have a diagnosis. Nested within that step 1, you can see kind of the tool that you can deploy in order to satisfy and advance from that outer ring into the next inner ring toward that big wad of cash in the center. Okay. Number 2, connection to service is where 80% of us mess it up. That's where we fall through the cracks. Okay. And sometimes for decades and decades, we're stuck here. What can we deploy? What tools can we use? And I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot your claim here to where it makes sense. But first we need to tell, what tools do we have at our disposal? Well, if you have a diagnosis during active duty, as if, right? That would be great. A nexus letter. Okay, a doctor's note saying that it's at least as likely as not that your condition is related to service. Hey, that'll do. That's a heavy hitter. Okay. If something is a presumptive condition, what's presumptive? Well, that means that the VA just kind of assumes that if you were in a specific location and you have a specific condition, they just kind of assume that that location or your in-service events cause that condition. They just kind of give it to you. An easy example of that is like an Agent Orange exposure, right? So if you're a Vietnam vet, you were exposed to Agent Orange. Now you have all these crazy types of cancers. It didn't matter if you didn't go to the doctor during service, because guess what? Your conditions are on that presumptive list. Burn pit exposure is another big one for respiratory conditions, okay? We're talking about automatic service connection type of conditions. The only thing that I would add to this, number 2 here, before we move on, is lay evidence, which I'm also going to talk about with number 3. This is the inner circle, right? This is where, again, all that potentiality congeals into real hard cash, right? It gets broader, and more specific. So now, okay, the VA admits, all right, you got the diagnosis, and yeah, we're on the hook for it. All right, how much do we owe you? Right? Severity. Personal statements, okay, aka lay evidence. You as the layperson, that could really help. You talking about and explaining how many headaches you have in any given week, you explaining how your back impacts you, maybe in the workplace and whatnot. Sure, okay, that could help, maybe with a TDIU or something. You explaining your true story could also help with service connection, because you're explaining your in-service event. Hey, they were shooting heavy artillery before I could get my earplugs on. They were discharging small arms and my earplugs weren't on. That's how I got the ringing in my ears, right? It's just a story. Okay, the compensation and pension exam. We're going to talk about this a little bit more because this is huge. But this runs into this last bullet here, which is DBQ, Disability Benefits Questionnaire. And these are kind of paired with the CNP exam, the Compensation and Pension exam, because your CNP examiner is essentially just a human DBQ machine. They are filling out your disability benefits questionnaire that they're going to submit to the person rating your claim when you're there in that examination. All right. Now, this is huge because a DBQ also contains something called a nexus opinion, which is like a little box in the DBQ where the VA is asking them, hey, in your opinion, Mrs. Nurse Practitioner, come on, shoot us straight. Do you think this is related to service? Is this person BSing us? There's room for their opinion, okay? This person has seen you for maybe 10 minutes. They probably haven't even looked over your file, to be honest with you. They're just going off of maybe their preconceived notions and beliefs and biases and kind of the vibe they get from you and whatever, underlying training that they have. And they're making a nexus opinion on that disability benefits questionnaire. Let me show you how that most likely, that one little sneaky paragraph on that DBQ is probably the reason that you've been struggling with your VA claims and exactly how to fix it. And more importantly, how not to fix it and waste 7 years of your life. Okay. VA Claims Academy style, there are 2 ways to disagree with your VA claims formally. Because you're savvy. You know not to go for the full Board of Veteran Appeals Court and sit there for a decade, right? And call the locksmith and pay to have the lock inspected and then pay to get the lock x-rayed to see the internals and see the mechanicals and take the lock apart and put it back together again when you're using a banana to open it. It won't help. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of cash, and it's horribly demoralizing. Here are the 2 ways. Number 1, not as strong, but could be useful. A higher level review, also known as an HLR, okay? A higher level review, it essentially just gets you a new VA rater and they rate your claim as is, fellow vets, as is. Meaning, if you think that you're going to add some new evidence because you forgot to add evidence the first time, and let me sneak in this extra piece of evidence that I forgot. Nope, not during an HLR. Okay, not during a higher level review. This is for when you have filed the perfect claim. I'm talking chef's kiss. Mwah. Personal statements, nexus letters, and you did something that I'll talk about here in a second to verify that the compensation and pension examiner did not sabotage you. Okay. Because they submit evidence into your claim too. That DBQ that we were talking about. All right. Now, we'll get to that in a second. But the second type of disagreement, right? The second type of formally disagreeing with your VA claim for savvy people is a supplemental claim. I like to use the catchphrase, supplements make you stronger. Just think about the skinny, skin and bones kid in high school that got pushed up against the lockers. He got swirlies. He got his books knocked over. Getting bullied. All of a sudden, you know what? I've had it. I'm going to start lifting some weights. I'm going to start taking scoop after scoop of creatine, of whey protein. What do those supplements help him do? Those supplements help make him stronger, okay? Now he can come back to school with a vengeance, okay? The bullies do not treat him the same way. He's picking up the ladies. All right, I'm running away with this metaphor. But supplements make you stronger, okay, is what I need you to remember. The reason why is because a supplemental claim not only allows you to add new evidence, it requires you to add new and relevant evidence. Okay. The cool thing is, too, is again, if your CNP examiner sabotaged you and poisoned the well on your claim, because remember, they submit evidence to, okay, they submit it to your VA rater. Then you get a new CNP exam as part of your supplemental claim. So not only do you get to, and you have to, add new evidence, so maybe you forgot a nexus letter. Hello. Maybe you forgot a nexus letter. Maybe you forgot a personal statement for each and every condition. You also get a new CNP examiner. That cranky examiner that you had last time, forget about them. Next examiner might be Mr. Rogers. Okay? That's how important that is. Now, you might be wondering here, and let me show you this. Let's go to Microsoft Paint for a second. Okay? You might be wondering, when then would I ever even do a higher level review? Okay. Well, since you can't add any new evidence, you would do a higher level review when you know that the mistake was the VA raters. Okay. Because you'll know when the mistake was the VA raters. Because, well, how can you even verify that? So let's even go before this, right? How can you even verify that? You need to spy on your CNP exam records. That key piece of intel, that reconnaissance right there will let you know whether to do a higher level review or whether to do a supplemental claim. Because if you know that, okay, yeah, I'm a listener of VA Claims Academy, personal statements and nexus letters, I got it, Jordan. I got it. You've been telling me that for ages. But if you don't know what your CNP examiner wrote on the day of your CNP exam, how are you going to know whether you need a new C&P exam or not because they gave you a bad opinion, right? How are you going to know? You're not going to know. So this, what I'm talking about, pulling your records from that past C&P exam, you could have just done it, maybe a couple weeks ago, right? Maybe last month, maybe it's years ago. You're going to do that via a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act. All right? I'll leave a link to that in the description below, how to pull the records of your C&P exam. But that will allow you to see what they wrote, because you can't just trust people to write everything down that you tell them, right? They're trying to get to lunch break just like anybody. Okay? If your C&P exam went well, and you confirmed that with the FOIA request, and the examiner saw your nexus letter that you brought and printed off and brought in with your C&P exam because you're prepared as a VA Claims Academy client, and you got that mock C&P exam, you already know what to expect, and you pull that FOIA request and you see that the examiner agreed with your nexus letter. You say, yeah, in my opinion, it's due to their service. Well, now you know that the problem wasn't you, because you went from the outer circles to the inner circle, right? The problem wasn't you. You're the one who submits the claim. You start. The problem wasn't the C&P examiner. You have to go through them before it gets to the rater. Okay, if it wasn't you, it wasn't the C&P examiner, who's the final party in this? The rater. Higher level review. Swap out the rater. Simple troubleshooting, isn't it? Right? It's just like fixing a car, fixing a computer. You eliminate the problems that it could be. From broadest to most specific. What happens when you call tech support? Did you turn it on? Ma'am, is the computer plugged in? Right? There's a reason they do that. It's a nested hierarchy way of troubleshooting. Okay. Supplemental claim. Again, if you filed the claim, filed on autopilot, okay, you were part of the mass hallucination that thinks that VA disability claims are difficult because they make it difficult on themselves, right? And that's how the system was set up, right? To make it difficult, for you to make it difficult on yourself and for that to perpetuate. So you cannot follow the crowd on this. Most vets are underrated. Don't listen to most vets, right? If something resonated for you where, hey, a nexus letter? Dang it. Maybe I should look into that. Yeah, you should. A tax-free passive pension for the rest of your life for you and your loved ones, and the health care that it affords your dependents? Yeah, you should. Okay. But that should be hope, It's not a brick wall. These are the things that you need to be able to know so you can effectively troubleshoot, so you're not just burning energy on demoralizing stuff that would never help you to begin with. When you go to the Board of Veterans Appeals, could you see how you're actually going and having a representative, you're paying attorney's fees, and ultimately, even if you won, you'd pay out a third of your backdated paycheck, which if your appeal took 5 years, if it took 7 years, how much do you think that's lost? Okay? Even if you won. But what you're doing is you're having an expensive lawyer go up and defend this crappy claim that was half-baked to begin with. Just fix the claim. You know what that's like? It's like having a small leak in your plumbing. And rather than just repairing that dripping leak, you're sitting there planning to repair the floor that it's about to seep into. Like, oh yeah, I better start getting some engineers on board to repair this wood flooring that the water is going to damage because of all this seeping. Repair the leak. Find the actual issue. Get it done at the source, right? You don't want to spend more and waste more time to have a less effective result. I hope I drove that home. A supplemental claim. Okay, remember, you need new and relevant evidence. Okay, so if you just need an increase on something, right? Let's say you're underrated for back, you're underrated for mental, right? You have less than an average mental rating. The average mental rating is 70%. And you're dealing with PTSD and you're rated at 30. Hey, something's wrong. But the good thing is, let me show you this, right? If you're rated at 70%, less than 70% for your PTSD, right? The good thing is, to get that increased, is you're already past the medical diagnosis part. The VA wouldn't rate you if they didn't know you had a diagnosis. The VA wouldn't rate you a percentage, even a 0%, right? The VA wouldn't rate you at all if it wasn't already conceded that it's service connected, right? So you're just right here. You only need, this is how close you are. You're in this circle, the red circle already. You just need to fix the red circle, which is severity. And right there, boom, you're getting a higher stack of cash. Okay. I know this was kind of a flowery, abstract video at the beginning, right? Talking about how things work, right? How does the solar system work? How does everything work? Well, it starts out as pure potentiality as you get to the outer realms. And then as you get closer and closer to the stage of that amphitheater, things congeal, they solidify, they get denser into you get to the world stage, right? Which potentiality has been traded away in lieu of being incarcerated into form. You can look at this as force, and look at this as form. All right, like Star Wars, the Force. I really hope this helped you. Here's a quick little chart of what happens with a higher level review and what happens with a supplemental claim. Feel free to pause and look over this, but it's everything that we already covered. This has been Jordan Anderson with VA Claims Academy. Share this with someone who needs it.